Yes, I, the whiskey-holding music snob, gave up alcohol for 5 months. For anyone who's new to the channel, holding a whiskey glass in my hand and bitching about whatever thing that was music related was kind of my hallmark as an online persona. So for me to give up alcohol is kind of like, okay, so like what comes next? I think it was a pretty big surprise for a number of people who've been following the channel for a few years now. It was a big surprise to me because it wasn't anything that I spurred on myself or that was like forced upon me. It kind of came a little bit out of nowhere. But I did quit drinking for 5 months, and here's what happened. Yes, for those of you who did watch the video, I did get one special dispensation to break that for one period of 1 day so that I could make my John Petrucci whiskey video, which if you haven't seen, go ahead and check the card up here. It's a great watch and it's a great whiskey. So what spurred me to do this? Well, during my Christmas vacation, I was up in Alaska visiting my brother, and I took a few hours of time to myself to make my yearly goals list. Like, what was I gonna accomplish this year? What had I accomplished the year prior? What had I failed on? Things of that nature. And part of that is setting personal goals for yourself. I only had career-oriented goals because that's what almost my entire life is. So I couldn't really think of anything that was like a healthy personal goal to set other than quitting smoking. I smoked all the time. And I really didn't want to do it. Which means it was probably the right personal goal to choose. But I set myself to it. I was gonna quit smoking. Come January 2nd, I'm like, all right, January 3rd, I'll start quitting smoking. I promise I'm gonna start weaning down. And I did, I stuck to it. But also on January 2nd, I was recovering from days and days straight of drinking an obnoxious amount, so much. I drank on my birthday, I drank on New Year's Eve, I drank on New Year's Day, and I mean, it was hefty drinking. Stuff that like, I couldn't even try to drive home on. It was crazy. So I'm taking a day completely off of alcohol, which for me was actually pretty rare. I drank at least a few drinks of alcohol pretty much every day, like 3 drink minimum. So for me to take a day off of drinking alcohol without actually being ill from a disease was actually pretty abnormal. That night, I got a call from my best friend who she is asked to remain anonymous. She called me and she was not in a good place, and she voiced her concerns that she didn't want to be drinking alcohol anymore, but felt like she wasn't strong enough to stop. She felt like she was using it too much to cope with certain situations in an unhealthy way. And I, out of nowhere, was just like, you know what? If you're gonna quit, I'll quit with you. Let's do this together. And then my brain immediately said, yo, dude, what the fuck are you doing? You're quitting cigarettes tomorrow. So we both agreed to give up alcohol until May 31st, which happens to be today, but tomorrow for me recording right now. This is past Mike at this point. So the following day, I continued not having alcohol. So basically since January 2nd, I have been alcohol free. And my method for quitting smoking was to wean myself off. I did that by using intervals in between cigarettes where I couldn't smoke and making those intervals longer and longer every single day to make sure I was smoking less and less each day. I was completely cigarette free by day 8, and I was starting to get a lot of anxiety from it, even though I was vaping. I've been vaping with nicotine throughout that entire time, and it was still giving me extreme anxiety. So for the first month of giving up alcohol, it was almost completely overshadowed by the fact that I was quitting cigarettes, even though I had the vape. It was that powerful of a psychological reinforcement. I mean, to give you an idea of how messed up the chemical and habitual reinforcement of cigarettes was, I was 8 days of no cigarettes, and I was picking up an old pair of pants that I hadn't worn in over a week, and I was rummaging through the pockets to see, you know, what stuff was in there, and I felt something. I'm like, what's that? I pull it out and I see my old pack of cigarettes. I still had 8 cigarettes in there, I remember specifically. And the moment I held on to that pack of cigarettes and looked at it, I felt an immediate release of tension throughout my entire body, like a massive serotonin hit, and it freaked me the hell out. That's how conditioned I was to smoking cigarettes. It was not just nicotine. Immediately broke those motherfuckers apart and threw them out. I was done. But like I said, that entire first month was completely overshadowed by the fact that I was quitting cigarettes, so the alcohol cravings were barely noticeable, if not non-existent. I was still going out regularly like I would. I would go out pretty much every night, and I was still, you know, going and seeing my friends playing shows. I was still going to the bar and seeing my friends there. I would just have a club soda and lime. Yeah, obviously it was weird at first, but you got used to it after a while, and you still liked hanging out with your friends. And for a person who works for themselves from home, there's not a whole lot of human interaction going on here. So, and I'm also a very extroverted person. So it was kind of something that I like mentally needed to still be in that habit, but also to see people and interact with people that I like. One of the big things I noticed was far less mental fatigue, and I think it has less to do with the alcohol and more to do with how the alcohol affects your sleep, if I had to guess. For anyone who joins the Song Suggestion Friday and Song Suggestion Saturday live streams, I think you'll notice I haven't been taking breaks anymore. I've been going straight through, unless I have to take a super quick pee break, but that doesn't count. Even during that pee break, I'm still listening, so I'm technically still on the clock. That's because I've been having a lot more mental endurance and being able to put my brain to work, intense work, for longer periods of time. Another thing that I had noticed was that when I was still habitually drinking, I didn't feel like I wanted to be around people unless I had a few drinks to get me kind of kick-started. I don't think anyone would claim this, but I personally felt like I wasn't nearly as pleasant to be around unless I had a few drinks in me. Once I had a few drinks in me, I was up, I was ready to party, I felt more alive, I felt more energetic, I felt more witty, I felt more brave. And at that point, with having more than a month of no alcohol, I was noticing I was just more pleasant, and I was still a nice person to be around and hang out with. I didn't need that chemical edge to get me there. I had to adapt my personality to just be a nice person to be around normally. It wasn't until about 6 weeks in when I really started to notice some pretty strong cravings. And by this point, I was drinking obnoxious amounts of soda water, whether I was going out. And I mean, it's hilarious now. Sometimes when I'm going to the pub that I like to frequent, they'll give me like a 64-ounce pitcher with like 5 limes just filled to the brim with soda water and ice. It's pretty hilarious to see. But it wasn't just while I was out. I was buying crazy amounts of soda water from the Kroger up the street here. And my fridge was always just packed with it constantly. I was drinking maybe like 100 to 140 ounces of soda water a night. I mean, hell, I'm drinking one right now. And I knew for sure that was because I was trying to supplement a drinking habit, not an alcohol habit, a literal drinking habit I was having at nighttime. My mouth and my stomach wanted something to stimulate the way similar to how alcohol did. So I gave it the semi-bitterness of the soda water. Another thing I was noticing at this point was, holy crap, my wallet looks way fuller. Quitting alcohol has done wonders for my bank account. As some of you may have noticed, I got a new camera, something I have needed for years. And the last thing I was noticing around this 6-week era was a lot of women were telling me that I was looking fantastic. Like, oh my gosh, you look great. You quit drinking? I can't believe it. That's so crazy. That's awesome. That's so good for you. Blah, 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 blah. I couldn't tell you to save my life what that difference is, other than maybe just a heightened confidence because I finally had the discipline to say no. You have to keep in mind at this point, unless I was actually sick with a disease like a cold or the flu or something like that, I would not voluntarily go without alcohol for any more than 2 days at a time. I was drinking at least 5 days, if not usually 7 days a week. So to be able to have this discipline to not only forego it, but to be around it on a very regular basis and still hang out with the people I liked hanging out with, that was a pretty big step for me. At this point, it was also making me rethink why I was going out in the first place. I knew a big part of it was to interact with people, but definitely part of it too was the alcohol. That was part of the ritual. And for instance, I love going to see my friend Spasmatics, but part of what makes Spasmatics so fun is the copious amounts of alcohol you drink and dancing with beautiful women. I am somehow both sad and very happy to say, unless there are copious amounts of alcohol in my system, you will not find me dancing much at all, which made those shows substantially less fun. But it's still a good time to see my boys play, but it's less exciting to see it every week. After I come to these revelations, the cravings subside for the most part, and you still have that awkward moment where you're at the bar, and a lot of times, if I was just going out and just drinking soda water, not ordering food, I would buy one drink for a friend at the bar so that I could tip my servers. Be sure, even if you're not ordering anything, be sure to tip your servers if you're gonna get just water. There was one, if not 2 times, I remember getting a Miller Lite bottle for a friend, and that's normally what I would order, is a Miller Lite bottle. Take the bottle, and the habit, the muscle memory of just having it go immediately to my lips, it engaged, and I had the lip of that bottle literally an inch away from my mouth before I was like, holy shit. Like, without thinking, that was the first thing that happened. Very conditioned. But aside from that odd moment, I didn't really have many more cravings until about 3 months in. I was getting some very serious cravings at this time. It was around release time for our album. I was stressed the hell out, and I really wanted to have drinks with my friends. I really wanted to be drunk with them and just let go of all of the stress. I don't think that's inherently a bad thing, because people use multiple modes of escape in order to de-stress their brains and de-stress their bodies. I just happened to choose alcohol. It's the one that worked really well for me, especially when I was hanging out with my friends. Now, it's not that I wasn't enjoying my time with my friends, but I knew that I enjoyed it substantially more when I was drinking. And I think more than anything, I was really just missing the heart-to-hearts that we would have and the very open honesty that we could share with one another when we were drinking, as opposed to me being more sober and a little bit more closed. Around 4 months in, my friend and I decide we're discussing what we've learned from this experience so far and what our plan is moving forward to make sure we're having a healthy relationship with alcohol after this 5 months. I have another friend of mine who has done these extreme diet and behavior changes that are kind of periodical, and she has told me that after she's done with them, she goes back to binging alcohol. A lot of times when you do these hard cutoffs, you overcompensate when you come back, and my friend and I did not want to do that. So we're having this very long discussion, and partway through, I had a revelation. A couple days prior to this talk, I had another friend in town, and I was taking them to a bunch of different places, including barbecue. She had never had barbecue before. So I was like, oh, we could try these craft beers, but I really want to enjoy this craft beer with you. So we kind of have like an experience to share together. It wasn't to have the alcohol to get drunk. It was to have the alcohol to supplement and enhance the experience I was already enjoying with my friend. And I couldn't, because I had to maintain my integrity, saying, okay, even if I could just have this one drink and then not drink for the remainder of the 5 months, that's not what I agreed to. That's not what I said I was going to do. Then it sparked for me what the unhealthy association really was. I was psychologically enforced to believe that drinking the alcohol was the fun activity that you supplement with people and with other activities. Whereas alcohol should supplement your enjoyable time you already have with people you love. It's not like that was the only way I used alcohol, but that was a very deeply rooted psychological enforcement in my brain. It was from when you're very young and you're not supposed to be drinking alcohol and you're like, dude, let's get drunk tonight. It's like, all right, cool. You know, whether that be in high school or college, drinking becomes the naughty forbidden fruit that you get your own dopamine rush just from doing something bad, on top of which it's the fact that the alcohol adds its own dopamine hit and has a very strong psychological reinforcement of drinking alcohol is the fun activity to do. Having stepped away from alcohol for so long, I was able to actually materialize this where it was buried away and not even really acknowledged, was that, oh, I have so much fun and enjoyable times with the people I love, and alcohol can actually make that more enjoyable. I jokingly call it, it's a social lubricant. Is it necessary? Absolutely not. But will it make the time better? Absolutely, yeah. So by missing out on that while my friend was visiting town, it was kind of a revelation to me of like, this is what alcohol is meant for. And I don't get to choose to do it this time because I didn't fully have a concept of that and I was misusing it in an unhealthy way. And I want to make sure I maintain a healthy relationship with alcohol so that I don't miss those opportunities in the future. The last significant experience I guess I can share with you was when I did get my dispensation from my friend in order to have that small period of time to drink whiskey in for that John Petrucci whiskey video. Like I had said in that video, I had about a half a shot of Jameson in order to attune my palate because it had been so long since I had had any alcohol. And when it hit, it was very satisfying. It was almost alarming how satisfying it immediately was. And then the alcohol was starting to sink in. It was just like, ooh, now I'm feeling it. Now things are feeling good. And I noticed where my abuse came in. When I'm drinking, I want to keep riding that wave of having that alcohol hit and hit and hit. It's such a great feeling. It's very satisfying, but it doesn't last incredibly long. I would say no more than 20 minutes. So in order to keep riding that wave, you keep drinking more. I don't think that that's inherently wrong, but you have to pick when you're doing it and if it's appropriate to do it at that time. Those factors rarely entered into my mind unless I had shit to do later. I didn't consider what I was doing to my body, and I didn't consider how I was going to be feeling the next day and how it was actually ruining my sleep. Then it came to the John Petrucci whiskey, and I didn't realize until after I was done with the video, I way overpoured, and I had to sit there and nurse that thing for like 2 or 3 hours after I was done filming, because that is it forces you to sip that whiskey. And it also doesn't get you super drunk when you sip it over that long period of time. It just becomes something kind of pleasant. I felt miserable trying to finish that whiskey because I wanted it to be done. I wanted it to be over with. And it's not because the whiskey's bad, it's because I was done drinking and I wasn't gonna be drunk anymore. At that point, I was dehydrated and tired and just like, I don't wanna waste this, it's so expensive. You know? It was kind of disappointing. I think it was disappointing because I did it by myself. I didn't have my friends there to share the moment with. I guess to cap off this video, I do have a plan in place now in order to maintain a healthy relationship with alcohol. I cannot wait to have my first drink, which for you guys will probably be a few hours. For me, it's tomorrow. The biggest thing I learned out of this, hands down, was discipline, which has been a problem of mine for a while. I can't think of any other time in my life where I gave up a vice, gave myself permission to indulge in that vice for a good reason. It was for a YouTube video. It was actually to give you guys some type of information on this whiskey, which I mean was a perfect brand intersection if you're talking about metal and whiskey and YouTube. But I gave myself permission to break my rule for a specific reason and did not continue to give myself permission after the fact, after the reason was gone. It wasn't just like, oh, I could have a little bit there, I can have a little bit here, and it'll be just fine. Nobody needs to know. I kept myself strong afterwards, even though the cravings came back harder. I remember having quit cigarettes in the past and having those moments of just like, just 1 or 2 puffs will be fine. And those 1 or 2 puffs leads you down a path of saying it's okay to just 1 or 2 puffs and you can do it again. It's okay if you just have, 3 puffs this time. It's just 1 extra, right? That winds up with another new pack of cigarettes and you're back in the cycle. Do I think that I have the level of self-control to do that with cigarettes now? Yeah, I think I honestly do. But the big difference between that and alcohol is cigarettes are far more destructive to your health and your wallet. It's honestly not remotely worth the quote unquote benefit of taking a puff of a cigarette and having the discipline to stay away from it after that, as it is the risk of me somehow failing and getting back into that cycle. There's no way I'm gonna risk going back to cigarettes, man. That was so awful. 11-year smoker, not gonna take the chance, man. Anyway, that's my experience with quitting alcohol for 5 months. I am so fucking excited to have another drink. I am very, very elated to spend some great times with my friends again. Let me know your thoughts about this or any of your experiences with alcohol in the comments below, and catch you guys in the next video. Rock on.